You know how people say, don't poke the bear? Well, HOA Kerren not only poked the bear, she drained the bear's pond, murdered its beloved koi fish, and sent the HOA newsletter out with a smug little smile on her Botoxed face. That's right, my koi pond. My peaceful, tranquil, koi-filled paradise that I had poured my time, soul, and roughly 2 months' worth of social security checks into. I'm not exaggerating when I say those fish were family. Sir Bubbles III, Princess Peony, Mr. Wiggletail. They all had names, personalities, and an instinctive understanding that I needed them more than I needed 90% of the people in this zip code. But Kerren? Number Kerren saw my shimmering little sanctuary and said it violated HOA Landscaping Regulations Section B, Subsection 4, Clause 6, because it was, quote, a breeding ground for mosquitoes and non-native aquatic life. Oh, the horror. Meanwhile, her own yard looked like a rejected set from Leave It to Beaver. Plastic flamingos, new army, and enough solar lights to make the whole block visible from the International Space Station. But I digress. It all started one crisp Tuesday morning. I stepped out with my coffee and fuzzy pink slippers, ready to greet my little aquatic pals, only to find the pond bone dry, like Sahara Desert meets Death Valley dry. At first I thought it was some freak plumbing issue, but then I saw it. Kerren, standing smugly across the street in her lavender tracksuit, sipping a green smoothie and smirking like she just solved world hunger. She waved. I waved back, using only one particular finger, and that's when she sauntered over and handed me a folded piece of paper, a citation, an official notice from the HOA stating that my pond had been deemed a neighborhood hazard and had been safely and appropriately drained by a contractor, hired and paid for by her. No warning, no hearing, no vote, just whoosh, fish genocide. And before you ask, no, she didn't relocate the koi. She didn't even ask if I wanted to. She just solved the problem like she always does, with the subtlety of a wrecking ball in a china shop. Now I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I call the police? Why didn't I sue? Why didn't I start yelling on the neighborhood Facebook group like a normal person in my demographic? Well, my dear friend, I thought about all that, and then I thought, nah, I'm going full Shakespearean. I wanted revenge, not just petty revenge, not just satisfying revenge. I wanted revenge with style, flair, drama, and the kind of poetic justice that makes your toes tingle. And what better way to get revenge than to drown Kerren's precious Kentucky bluegrass lawn with koi fish? I started planning that very day. You don't mess with an old lady's fish and expect her to just move on. Number I was going to turn her fake perfect yard into an aquatic utopia. I'd make her lawn the new pond. And I wasn't just going to pour water and toss in a couple of minnows. I was going to build a koi kingdom, whether she liked it or not. Because if she thought my pond was a hazard, wait until she needed a snorkels to mow the lawn. Now, I don't want to brag, but when I get vengeful, I don't mess around. I'm not one of those folks who leaves anonymous notes or posts cryptic shade on the HOA Facebook group. No, sir. I go full Mission Impossible meets National Geographic. The day Kerren drained my pond, she didn't just ruin my backyard. She activated the petty genius I had long kept dormant under a thick layer of retirement boredom and seasonal arthritis. So I spent the next week researching. Not just casual Googling, mind you. I dove headfirst into fish forums, landscape design websites, and even contacted a few shady koi enthusiasts from Reddit who gave me advice that ranged from legally questionable to, "Are you okay, Mom?" And that's when I met Greg. Greg was a retired water features specialist who once built a waterfall for a Las Vegas casino and now lived out of a converted school bus with his pet iguana, Taffy. Greg had two things I needed: an unhealthy love for koi fish and absolutely no regard for HOA regulations. He was my guy. Together, we mapped out a plan so audacious, so delightfully deranged, it would have made Ocean's 11 proud. The key was the timing. You see, Kerren had this annual HOA lawn and garden showcase she hosted every May, the kind where all the neighborhood Karens, Kerren included, dressed in floral blouses and fake pearls, sipping lukewarm Chardonnay while judging each other's begonias. This year, Kerren was planning to unveil her new irrigation system, complete with talking sprinklers, a rose pergola, and Get this, a miniature fountain shaped like her dog, Mr. Snickerdoodle. I knew I had to strike then. The weekend before the showcase, I waited until nightfall, donned my darkest yoga pants and a hoodie, and with Greg on standby in his camouflage school bus, I swear this man had lived through 5 different lives. We got to work. Now, I'd already figured out the slope of the neighborhood thanks to a conveniently posted zoning map on the HOA website, which I printed, laminated, and highlighted with the enthusiasm of a CSI detective. Kerren's lawn, slightly downhill from my backyard. I mean, it was practically begging to become a koi catchment. So first, we discreetly rerouted my home's rain gutters to flow directly toward her yard. Nothing suspicious, just a few carefully placed pipes hidden under decorative mulch and a conveniently large gnome named Floody. Then we set up a timed release system in my backyard, filling up a concealed inflatable pond, Greg's genius idea, which would discharge its contents at the touch of a button, or in this case, a remote shaped like a TV clicker. But the pièce de résistance, the fish delivery, I'd secretly been housing my replacement koi in kiddie pools inside my garage. Yes, I know, a bit excessive, but I wasn't about to let Kerren win. Princess Peony 2, Sir Bubbles 4, and a whole new gang of elite koi were ready for deployment. Greg helped me transport them, very carefully, with soothing flute music playing to keep them calm. Greg insisted, and we set them loose in the shallow flood zone we created at exactly 8 a.m. the day of the HOA showcase, with half the neighborhood sipping mimosa spritzers and pretending not to gossip. I clicked that remote like it was the season finale of a soap opera. Water came cascading down my newly rigged garden slope in a glorious, glistening stream, carrying koi fish like golden torpedoes right onto Kerren's award-winning lawn. You have never seen horror like a bunch of women in sundresses trying to chase 40 fish with decorative paper fans. Kerren stood frozen, her face cycling through all 5 stages of grief, while Mr. Snickerdoodle barked at the koi, slipped, and landed rear first in the fishy tidal pool now forming near the petunia bed. And me? I stood on my porch in a pink robe, sipping coffee with a serene smile, as if I had no idea why there was suddenly a koi pond in the middle of her hydrangeas. Now, you'd think that, after such a glorious aquatic ambush, I'd have been dragged into a neighborhood tribunal, or at least publicly shamed in the HOA newsletter, right? Wrong. You see, I had prepared for this moment like a general preps for battle. The thing about these HOAs is that they love rules, live by them, die by them. So I did what any woman with too much time, a grudge, and a stack of legal pads would do. I buried Kerren in paperwork before she could even find a mop. The day after the koi flood, I personally hand-delivered a neatly bound 47-page document to the HOA board, complete with color-coded tabs and a section titled Koi Law, a case study on environmental restoration. You see, I had discovered that our county had a little-known ecological initiative called the Urban Biodiversity Pilot Program. It was meant for encouraging natural habitats in residential areas. Guess who was now the proud founder of the neighborhood's first free-range decorative aquatic ecosystem? That's right, me. My koi invasion wasn't vandalism, it was environmental activism, baby. The board couldn't touch me. In fact, 2 members even praised my innovative commitment to sustainability, while Kerren sat there in the meeting fuming like a spoiled muffin in a steam room. She tried to object, of course. Oh, did she try? She claimed I'd sabotaged her yard, damaged her property, traumatized Mr. Snickerdoodle, who now twitched every time he heard splashing, and violated several articles of the HOA code. But oh, dear reader, what she didn't count on was me recording her. You remember that lavender tracksuit morning, the smug one with the smoothie and the citation? Yeah, well, my porch camera did too. Caught her red-handed handing me the illegal pond draining notice. Turned out she didn't have the board's approval. She hadn't submitted a request or even informed the neighborhood, which meant she used HOA authority for personal vengeance. The HOA board, already on edge from recent threats of a class action lawn discrimination suit, panicked. Kerren was suspended from the board immediately and required to attend a community harmony seminar that I may or may not have accidentally signed her up for twice. Her garden showcase trophy was rescinded. Her front yard sprinkler dog was removed. Apparently it was a fire hazard, and her lawn was now listed as an experimental wetland restoration site, which meant she couldn't mow it or alter it until the fish habitat was safely relocated. And by safely, I mean never. I offered to help, of course. I even suggested a few landscaping ideas, maybe a koi-friendly rock garden, or perhaps a Zen bridge shaped like a flamingo, but Kerren wasn't interested. Instead, she spent most mornings glaring at her fish-infested flower beds, while I hosted pond yoga on my lawn for the neighborhood ladies, complete with koi snacks and spa music. It was a hit. The local paper even did a small feature titled "When Koi Karma Strikes Back." I framed it. But here's the best part. The HOA ended up amending the landscaping regulations after all this chaos. They now allow ornamental ponds and aquatic habitats so long as they promote biodiversity and don't interfere with emergency access, which mine, of course, doesn't. I even got a tiny grant from the city to expand the koi area, and Greg, my aquatic mischief partner, is now offering backyard waterfall installations at a discounted rate for HOA members. Kerren, she moved her lawn chairs to the backyard where no one can see her fume in peace. I'd like to say I feel bad, but every time I see Princess Peony II swim a lazy loop around her prized roses, I remember that some justice isn't served cold. It's served wet, wiggly, and with a splash of chlorine. Now that the koi kingdom had been established and Kerren's reign of HOA tyranny effectively dethroned, life in the neighborhood took on a strange, almost magical, new rhythm. My backyard, once a simple little patch of grass and gravel, had become a local landmark. Children came to feed the fish after school. Retirees brought lawn chairs and gossip, and a rogue flock of ducks even attempted to move in, though Princess Peony II quickly established herself as the aquatic queen and chased them off like a scaly torpedo. As for me, well, I became something of a neighborhood legend. The Koi Crusader, they called me, or Auntie Splash, depending on who was doing the whispering. The HOA newsletter, once a soul-sucking spreadsheet of grass length and gutter cleanliness, now featured photos of koi fish with captions like "Spot the bubbles" and "Guess the Goldie." And while Kerren still lived a few houses down, she had taken a vow of silent hostility. I'd see her sometimes watering her limp hydrangeas with the resigned expression of someone who knows they lost not just a battle, but the whole damn war. I almost felt bad. Almost. Because the truth is, it wasn't just about the pond. It wasn't just about the fish. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could take whatever they wanted just because they wore a name badge and carried a clipboard. Kerren had drained my pond like it was her God-given right, but I had flooded her arrogance with koi, confidence, and just the right dose of ridiculous vengeance. And I didn't stop there. Inspired by the great koi coup, I teamed up with Greg and a few other like-minded neighbors, we called ourselves the Fishy Five, to start a community beautification initiative. Our first project, turning an unused lot next to the tennis courts into a public Zen garden, complete with a mini waterfall, lily pads, and, of course, more koi. Kerren tried to protest at the next board meeting, mumbling something about invasive species, but was promptly overruled by a unanimous vote and a polite round of applause. By the end of the year, our neighborhood had become a little more colorful, a little more peaceful, and a whole lot wetter. The city awarded us a Green Living plaque. I hung it on my fence right next to a wooden sign that reads, "Warning, residents may be armed with fish." These days I sip my morning coffee by the pond, watch the koi shimmer like gold dipped in sunlight, and smile knowing that even in the prim, proper world of HOA regulations and petty yard complaints, creativity, resilience, and a splash of fishy revenge still win. So if you're ever feeling pushed around by a clipboard-wielding dictator in polyester slacks, just remember, ponds may dry, but petty flows eternal. And never, never mess with a woman and her fish.